Okay, so this is the first installment in the how to upgrade your home, whether it's for selling or just for yourself or for both, for a fraction of the price it would cost if you went to a general contractor. This is going to be the first video in the series. You know, as we do a new video each month, we'll move from the basics onto more focused areas, and we'll go from kind of like least expensive to things that'll cost a little bit more. So this month we're going to focus on the first things you should do. So if you haven't done what's going to be in this video, then you don't need to be doing anything that are going to be in the later videos, because these items are ones that will affect your entire house, cost the least, and are the easiest to do, but will have the most effect on the overall aesthetic of the home, if you will. So the first thing that we always do when we're prepping a home for market is we change out the recessed lights, the can lights. So unless your home was built, you know, geez, in the 70s, 80s, and hasn't been updated at all, you have recessed lights throughout your home. They're still the gold standard for lighting. They provide the most light, they're dimmable, they're hardwired to switches. You know, these days you can dial in the light color to give your house a warmer feel, a cooler feel. The lights provide a ton of actual light lumens. Whereas older lighting, bulbs that screw into the recessed lights, you know, they're typically very yellow, don't provide as much light, not very efficient. So upgrading the lighting will provide a constant color and bright light source throughout your entire home, and it can be done very inexpensively. So changing the mount's pretty easy. So most recessed lighting that has never been updated just has the baffle, which is the white part that sits on the ceiling, which is just a plastic piece, and then it's got a bulb screwed into the middle. There's actually a can, you know, metal housing up in the ceiling that has all the wiring and that the light sits into, that sort of thing, but you don't need to change any of that. So they have retrofit LED can lights that you can buy off Amazon. The prices come down so much. You can buy 24 of them for about $100. Whereas they used to be, you know, 10 years ago, they were $30 a piece at Home Depot. But now, you know, the technology's come so far and so many people are doing it that the prices come way down. In addition, they all come with switches on the light where you can change what color the light's actually emitting. And we'll go into that in a little more detail, but you know, they're so easy to change out. So if you have a recessed light with a bulb, you just unscrew the light bulb, pull the baffle down, which is just held in place by a couple springs. So you just grab the plastic piece, pull it down, detach the springs. The retrofit unit just plugs directly into the light socket. So the wires actually have like the end of a light bulb. So you just screw it into where a light bulb would go, and you just push it up and put the hinges or the springs in the right spot, and you're all done. Most homes have anywhere, you know, I mean, if it's a 4,000 square foot home, you know, you could have 40 can lights, but most homes are going to be in the, you know, 16 to 28 range, is, you know, the most common. So all you got to do is go around, count how many you have, go on Amazon, order these. I'll put a link up to the ones that I buy. They're great quality, they're cheap, they come from Amazon, they'll be shipped to you in a couple days. And then you can hire a handyman if you want, but all you got to do is just go around with a ladder. You don't even need any tools, and you're just unscrewing light bulbs, pulling the baffle off, taking the new one, screwing it in, and pushing it up. Piece of cake. When it comes to the color of the lights, they have, you know, they'll have a switch, which is usually 2,700, 3,000, 3,500, 4,000, 5,000, and that number corresponds to the warmth of the light. So 2,700 is typically like a yellow light. 3,000, 3,500 is usually the sweet spot of being white, but without it being, you know, like too white, like a commercial building is. Once you get into the 4,000 or 5,000, it starts looking, you know, it's more in like the ultraviolet range. So, you know, the light actually starts taking on like a blue hue to it. And I don't ever recommend that for homes. My home, I have everything's 3,000 in the main living areas. So the kitchen, the family rooms, and the bedrooms are 3,000. And then the hallways and the bathrooms, I do 3,500, which is a little more white. So that's really easy to do. So that's step one. Couple $100, you could probably do your entire house if you're doing the work yourself. Take you a few hours just going around with a ladder. If you have them in your stairwell, you know, and you don't feel comfortable getting up on a ladder to do that, you might have to hire a handyman. If you need one, just reach out to me. I have a great one. Okay, so recessed lights, step one. Tying into that, when you replace all this lighting with these LED retrofit lights, they're all dimmable. So you can buy LED dimmer switches to replace your current light switches, and then you're gonna have dimmable lighting in every room of your house. So in my house, everything's dimmable except for hallways and bathrooms, and I love it. So all my rooms, whether it's my family room, my kitchen, the under cabinet lighting, everything's just has one dimmer switch. You know, it's a main light switch, but then it has a little dimmer on the side. And I can dial in the ambiance of my house at any time, and it's fantastic. It really creates a mood for when you're having company or just what you like. You know, these LED cans put out a lot of light. You don't need floodlight levels of light in your house at all times. So, you know, step two in this process is changing out old light switches and electrical sockets. And while you're doing that, you can put in LED dimmers for all the new lighting you just put in. So older light switches, whether you still have the ones that stick out and are actually like a lever, or if your home's built in the last 20 years and it's got, you know, regular or kind of like flatter switches, you can still change them out change them out to a white new unit. It's pretty easy to do. You could have a handyman do it if you want, but you know, the old electrical sockets that have two round spots and then a plate that crosses over, that's kind of way out. You can buy new ones for, they're probably like a couple bucks a piece when you buy them in bulk. And it's just one solid rectangle with prongs for each, and then a plate that goes around it. So step two is, and this one's a little more time consuming, but not that expensive, is changing out all the light switches and electrical sockets in your house. You think, oh, that's not gonna make a difference. It makes a huge difference, absolutely huge difference. When you match all the light switches to the electrical sockets in terms of the wall plate. You can do wall plates that don't have screws in them. So it's like a screwless face mount. Those look super high end. You can buy those on Amazon. Just creates a much newer feel to the house. That takes a little bit more, if you want to do it yourself, you either need to wear gloves so you don't give yourself a little shock. But you can hire a handyman if you want. It'll be a little more expensive because it's a little more time intensive, but the trade-off is well worth it with everything kind of flowing together, and you don't have old yellow plates and light sockets. When you're going around your house or other people are going around your house, you're always looking at things when you're turning switches on. Trust me, when they're older, it just makes the house feel old. Putting new ones in, not that hard. If you don't want to have a handyman do it, if you want to do it safely, you're just going to flip off a breaker, change everything out in that area, flip the breaker back on. You don't have to worry about getting shocked. If you have more electrical experience, you can do it without flipping off the breaker. You just wear gloves and try not to touch the hot wire. Okay, so that covers those. Last thing, super easy to do, makes an incredible difference in the just total feel of the house, and that's changing out your door hardware. So that means the levers or knobs on your doors, and I'm not talking like your front door, I'm talking like all the interior doors. So all the doors going bedroom to bedroom, or hallway doors, or going into the bathrooms. So we're talking the door knobs, we're talking all the hinges. So these are super easy to replace. You can do these yourselves. You don't need a handyman. Of course, you can hire someone to do it if you want, but all you need is a screwdriver. I would recommend a drill with a driving bit on it, so you don't have to sit there and for each screw and take forever. But when it comes to the hinges, you're replacing one at a time. You just take off one hinge. You don't have to take off the door. You just take off the hinge, replace it, screw it back in, move on to the next hinge. The door's not going anywhere. You don't have to take off the doors. I'd say you could probably do the whole house for, it depends on the size of the house, but I don't think you're gonna be spending more than $500 on the materials. So just go on Amazon. The most dramatic effect, if you have white doors, if you don't have old wooden faced doors from the late 70s or early 80s, if you have white doors, go with black. Go with black door hardware. You don't have to have some luxury home to go with black door hardware, but it makes a dramatic difference in just the overall aesthetic niceness of the home. You can order all this stuff on Amazon. It's not that expensive. You have options whether you want to go with levers on the doors or if you want to go with knobs. Knobs being round where you turn them and levers being ones where you grab it. So just kind of depends on what you like. I would try to stay away from anything that looks too modern, like hard lined rectangle levers. I think that's going a little bit too much. I know in my house, I have just round knobs. They're black, it can be called oil rub bronze, but nothing's really oil rub bronze. It's pretty much just like a flat black. So easy to do. Once you do one door, you're like, oh, this is so easy. And then you just bang all the doors out. Probably have a lot of doors in your home. You could have 12 doors with 3 to 4 hinges each. But the key is you want to hit all the doors and do them all the same. So you need to see what kind of hinges you have and then look for those hinges on Amazon, and then same thing for the door hardware. But yeah, super easy to do, dramatic effect on how your home looks afterwards. So just to sum up what we have in this video, we have changing out the recessed lighting, changing out the door hardware, and then changing out the light switches and power outlets. So recessed lights, a couple $100. Door hardware, maybe 500. Light switches and outlets, the materials, there's different brands. But if you just go with like Levitron, which is a kind of like a mid-grade, the switches aren't going to be more than, $10 each. You're going to have different types of switches depending on how many switches connect to a single light. That's something you can reach out to me about if you need more information, or you can just Google it. But you'll need to get the right types of switches. But, I'd say you're doing the whole house for a few $100, again, maybe 400. So these 3 things, you can spend $1,000 on just the materials, knock it out yourself when you have some time, and all of a sudden your house is going to be so much different in terms of when you just walk through it, you're gonna be like, wow, this feels so much nicer. And this is just a very basic thing that, you'll enjoy living in it more. And then when you sell at some point down the road, the house is just gonna, inherently be worth more because it's gonna have a much nicer feel to it. So hope that was all relatively easy to understand. If you have any questions about it, reach out to me. If you need recommendations for a handyman, or you have questions about the process, I'm always happy to help. Just reach out to me, or I'm sure you can find a more in-depth guide on Google, but those would be my recommendations for the first things to do for your home. Next month we'll focus on, or the coming months we'll focus on more detailed things like We'll do a month on flooring, we'll do a month on cabinets, we'll do a month on counters, we'll do a month on plumbing hardware, we'll do a month on paint, inside and outside, we'll do a month on landscaping, hardscaping, we'll knock things off one at a time. But don't even worry about any of that other stuff if you haven't done these. If you still have old brass handles, door handles, you have the original light switches on, there's no point in doing this other stuff because these basic ones are going to drag everything down. So knock these out, and then we'll start going into the more detailed stuff in the coming months.